if you are trying to reinvent your business, don't think that a rebrand is going to do that. So don't put all your time and effort into redesigning your logo or maybe changing your name, thinking that's going to be the magic formula that changes everything around for you. You've got to go deeper in and really figure out what is preventing you from really finding that product market fit that you're possibly struggling to find.
Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa. Entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation.
You know, Justin, there's one thing that we did that we didn't ever talk about on this show. We totally changed the name of our podcast, and we didn't even mention it to you guys. Like, it's been a few episodes now, and you may have noticed that the name of the podcast changed from Kingspiration to King Moves. So we want to talk about that with you today and in rebranding in general. When should you do it? When shouldn't you do it? Why did we do it? I guess initially, I'll share my thoughts first. I listen to podcasts a lot, and sometimes our podcast pops up in my feed. So if I'm in the middle of something like a run or a workout, I actually listen to this whole podcast in its entirety. Otherwise, I don't really listen to the whole thing. And a couple of times I was listening to it and I hear the intro and the outro, and it was saying Kingspiration, and we were talking about motivating people and doing this. But then the actual episode itself, the meat of the episode was a lot more tactical. And it usually is. We're usually talking about things out loud and then trying to give our listeners, you all, some action tips that you could take and apply to your business and life. So I thought, that doesn't match. It seemed incongruent to me to call it Kingspiration when we're not just out here talking about inspiration. So Justin and I brainstormed some different names, and we thought, why not King Moves? Just like in chess. I'm a chess player. Are you a chess player, Justin?
I'm not a chess player. I'm not.
Okay. Well, in chess, I'm sure you know that the king can only move one space at a time. So that's what it's all about. Of course, it's a play on our names, Justin King and Ethan King, but also, in chess, the most powerful piece in the game, the king, the most powerful piece is the queen, because the queen can move all kinds of directions in as many spaces, but the king can only move one space at a time. But that one move can be the most powerful because the king is what you're trying to take down in chess. So we wanted to share that with you guys about the background of the name changing. And I want to hear Justin's thoughts on it, and then just about rebranding in general.
Yeah, I think, you've covered the majority of it, Ethan, but I think the big thing as well is, and I'm speaking from my side, I didn't ever feel super attached to Kingspiration. I felt attached to the conversations that we were having, but I didn't feel attached to the name. And I think that says something. And to your point, the one thing that always resonated the most about what we speak about is that one action that we come up with, or this idea of thinking through things out loud and coming to a new opinion with an action. And the word that we've often used is, what can you do to get unstuck? Or what is the easiest move or next step that you can take? And that's what appealed to me when we started brainstorming and throwing the ideas around about this king move. And for me, a king move doesn't necessarily have to be the move that wins the entire game. It's really just the move that could get you unstuck. And that's the way I see it. And look, it's the smallest possible move. Oftentimes, it doesn't have to be this major complete rebrand of something necessarily. It could be just, what is that small thing that you're going to be doing? So that's what's really stuck out for me. And as soon as you brought it up, I'm like, hey man, I've been listening to this, and it's not really, I don't think there's congruency. I also just was thinking, you and I are not necessarily the hype type. So it's not about just being here and trying to be as inspirational as possible. I think where you and I get major good feels is just from hearing about people that have taken one small action and it's made a difference in their business or in their lives. And off the back of that, they build momentum and off they go. So yeah, excited about the renaming rather than a rebranding. Maybe what we need to do next is let's get new cover pics to go with the new name. So it's looking fresh, and we we then have completed the full rebrand.
Yeah, let's do that. I did sneak a new headshot on my end. You need to send me yours. So
Yeah, it's on its way. It's on its way after this.
awesome. But with that said, this makes me think about business in general because our listeners may be wondering, well, when is it right to change your business name or if you're just starting out, how should you go about naming your business? So pop trivia quiz for you, Justin. What was the original name of Amazon?
Like Books Galore or something. I don't know. What was the original name?
Cadabra Incorporated.
Have heard that before.
The
As in the
problem
book
was
is here.
like a dead body. So they renamed to Amazon. But one must wonder, why didn't they just call themselves something like booksgalore.com when they first came out?
Do you know the reason, or is this a question where we're thinking it through, thinking out loud right now?
I've read the book, so I know the reason. I think I've read both of them. They're two probably really popular books about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Well, he wanted to be the everything store. That's their tagline. They wanted to sell everything from A to Z. That's why you have the A and the Z in the logo, and the arrow goes from the A to the Z if you look at the logo. And the arrow also forms the shape of a smile. So a lot of nice details in the Amazon logo, but they want to sell everything from A to Z, which they're doing. But he started out with the books very strategically because he knew that books were it's something that they were very easy to sell, and he didn't have to keep a bunch of inventory for. It's small, it's shippable. So he was really testing out the logistics system and started with books. I think he knew in the back of his mind that he was going to quickly expand into other products.
Yeah. So that's smart. I still don't really know why they would have chosen Amazon as the name. I think it's a good name. It's all things. Have you seen that in your experience before, where a company has snookered themselves to a degree with what they call their business as a starting point, and then they have to rebrand or rename because they're servicing different industries now, or they don't just sell books anymore. They're also selling something else, as an example. Have you ever seen that in your exposure and your experience with so many different EO businesses?
Let's see, with EO businesses, definitely had a few people that have experience who did a rebrand. Usually it's to make it more simple, or it might be going from the founder's name to a more sophisticated name. Like one of my friends, Joe Kaufman, he recently, it's probably a few years ago, he rebranded his company to Setup. I think he got the .com, if I'm not mistaken, but he calls his company name is just one word, Setup. I don't know if they got the .com. That's a pretty unique, pretty short domain name. But it's simple. It's memorable. It's a short domain name when it comes to typing something in the web. So there are lots of reasons to do it. I have some more trivia for you if you like.
Listen.
Do you guys drink Pepsi? Okay.
Not a lot, very little.
Okay, but you know what Pepsi is. What was the original name?
I have no idea. I've thought it was always Pepsi.
Brad's Drink.
Brad's Drink.
Brad's Drink. Whoever Brad is, that was the original name of Pepsi. And it was changed to Pepsi due to one of the ingredients, which is pepsin.
That is interesting.
How about this one? I just learned this one. Google. What was the original name?
No idea.
Back Rub.
Back Rub.
Back Rub.
No way. That can't be true.
I have no idea.
Google's telling you about Google.
Well, what's funny is I'm on Perplexity because I don't even hardly use Google anymore. But that's a conversation for a different day. I'm sure we've addressed that already. But there are actually, if you just look up significant company rebrands, it's very fascinating. Ask yourself, is it time to rebrand your company? Or if you're just starting out, are you going to go with the founder's name or come up with some unique name? Or you could also go with a more literal name. What's a real Office Depot? It's very literal. Books a million.
The thing that's coming up for me is that there's a renaming and there's a rebranding. And where do we draw the line between those two? Because Jaguar underwent a rebranding, and that was interesting. I haven't even looked at that latest outcome of what that was. Was it a bit of a spoof, or was it legit?
No, it's legit. Yeah, it's legit.
Yeah. So
there was a lot of controversy around it, but I see where they're going with it. And I think at the end of the day, it'll be a good move for their brand.
Yeah, I think so as well. And that's a rebranding. And I think most most businesses, if we have to think about it, most organizations, most big organizations have undergone some form of a rebranding. Or would we call the design of a new logo a rebranding? Where do we draw the line, or where do we make a differentiate between a new logo, a new brand, a new name? Maybe that's one a little bit more obvious, but new logo versus new brand. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's most people are going to do a rebrand, not only change the name, but also change the visual components. I mean, we really just changed the name for our podcast because everything's the same, the font and everything. If you look at the cover art. So it was very subtle. And also because we were kind of testing it out, we wanted to play around with it, see how we felt about it also before we made this announcement. So I guess you can't, even though we only changed the words, it is still a rebrand because it does change how it looks visually. So I guess rebrand, rename go hand in hand.
Yeah.
There are a lot of companies that only do a rebrand. What comes to mind first is fast food companies like Wendy's. Like they'll get a whole new look, even change the look of the building to make them look more modern. Even a lot of McDonald's have done that. But, same name, just they might change something about the font, make it more sleek, up to date, and make the architecture more modern and up to date as well.
It's the pursuit of relevance. I think that's what it comes down to. That rebranding is the ongoing pursuit of relevance and what's going to keep us relevant with our, I suppose, and this becomes the difficult part is when you're making the decision, what's going to keep us relevant with our existing target market or our existing customers, our existing clients, as well as that new market that we're hoping to tap into. I think that's got to be a driving factor behind the rebrand as well. You might be feeling like you're losing touch, you're not staying relevant. So we've got to make that pivot and what is going to appeal to everybody. Well, not everybody, but the chosen.
Right. And there are a lot of factors that go into it, like SEO and, being able to be discovered and things like that. So you need to, when you're making a decision about either rebranding or starting a new brand, ask yourself, are you willing to put in the work? Because if you make it a word that is not even a real word or unrecognizable or someone's name, then you have to put the story behind the brand. And that takes time. People have to get familiar with it and people need to feel that way about your brand. A brand at the end of the day is really a feeling, right? When you hear a company name or a person's name, it evokes a certain story in your head, which therefore evokes a feeling in your body. And so as we are crafting our brands, let's keep that in mind. What story do we want to tell? You hear this a lot with airlines. Like if I say Delta, people have a different feeling than if I say Spirit Airlines. Spirit, it gives me a little bit of anxiety when I hear Spirit because it's that cheap airline budget. I hear discomfort. I hear never fly it again. Sorry. But, you gotta be careful. But for them, that's what they want. They want to be known as this is the cheapest option. You're just getting on a bus. It just happens to be in the air and we're going to get you there. So you have to make that decision when you're forming your company or rebranding your company.
Yeah. The one thing that I think we can end off with perhaps here is just that when starting a company, it's very, very easy to think you're making strides by designing the logo and coming up with a name. That's not building a business, but you get so sucked into it and it takes up so much time. In that same breath, if you are trying to reinvent your business, don't think that a rebrand is going to do that. So don't put all your time and effort into redesigning your logo or maybe changing your name, thinking that's going to be the magic formula that changes everything around for you. You've got to go deeper in and really figure out what is preventing you from really finding that product market fit that you're possibly struggling to find. And I don't think that's always going to be the name or the brand or the colors in your logo that's going to resolve that for you.
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't invest a lot of resources and money into a rebrand unless you just have it. But these big companies, they have millions of dollars in extra cash laying around to throw at a rebrand and to see if it works, and they can always revert. But for small businesses, we probably don't have that luxury. So at the end of the day, my king move would be to tell you, no matter what your brand is, deliver exceptional service, deliver exceptional products, because that is the brand that people will talk about. And it really doesn't matter what the name of your company is, that name will get shared.
Yeah, I love it. Focus on the brand experience. What is that brand promise you're making?
That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Remember, in chess, like in business, one right move can change everything. Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum.
If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for their next breakthrough, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations. Until next time.